You are about to hear stories that begin with curiosity and end with a fight to get back to daylight. These are not fictional tales designed to thrill you. These are real people who stepped into places carved by water and time, who thought they were prepared, and who learned in the hardest possible way what caves can demand of a human being. If you like careful, true survival stories that reveal how small choices can mean the difference between getting lost and finding a way back, subscribe to this channel now and turn on notifications so you do not miss the rest of these kinds of videos. Stay with me through every story, because each one carries a lesson that could save a life. Imagine standing at the lip of an opening in the earth. The air there is cool and smells of wet stone and ancient earth. Your headlamp throws a cone of light into a black that feels like it could fold over you. Every step echoes. Every breath sounds too loud. That was the beginning for several ordinary people who decided to explore, and who ended up learning how fragile a plan can be. On a late spring day, a man named Chris drove his family toward a cave they called Ice Rink. He had explored before. He had a map and a headlamp, and he thought the entrance he found matched what the map showed. Chris left the car a short distance from the opening and approached alone first. He wanted to check conditions, to make sure his family would be safe going in. The entrance narrowed quickly, and the passage squeezed down into a tiny crawlway. He consulted the map, waited for his eyes to adjust, and pressed into the cramped tunnel. It is worth pausing on what a tiny crawlway does to the human body and mind. When a passage forces you to bend so low your shoulders scrape or your helmet brushes rock, your world reduces to a crescent of lamplight, the concrete press of stone, the slow, metered pace of breath. Time compresses. It becomes easy to believe that if you push forward far enough, you will emerge somewhere open, somewhere that matches the map, somewhere you can uncoil your body and breathe in sunlight. Chris crawled with that expectation. He came out into a larger passage and began to walk, and then he walked for a long time and could not find the part of the cave his map promised. Maps are an uneasy comfort underground. They are drawn from above and from memory, from careful surveys and from observations made by people whose steps did not always follow the same route. A crack in the rock, a deposit of fallen ceiling, a breakdown passage that appeared after the map was made, any of those things could change the landscape beneath your feet in ways the paper cannot predict. Chris found rocks that had fallen from the ceiling, obstacles not shown on his map. He climbed over rubble and kept going. When he tried to return the way he came, the crawlway he remembered was blocked with packed dirt and rocks. He realized he was not just turned around but disoriented in a passage that did not behave like his map. He made a mark in the dirt, a big X, to test something he did not yet fully understand. He walked deliberately in the opposite direction and counted his steps. After many steps, his headlamp illuminated the same X. He understood then what too many people discover only at the worst possible moment: the cave passage formed a complete loop. The route he had followed doubled back on itself. He was trapped in circular corridors where the same features repeated until the mind could no longer trust sense or direction. That repetition plays tricks on the mind. When every tunnel looks the same, distinguishing landmarks fail to anchor memory. Chris walked the loop again and again. He tore pieces of his map and left them at places he already searched so he would not waste time looking the same ground twice. Those scraps were practical, desperate breadcrumbs. He forced himself to think, to ration breath, to keep his panic at bay enough to search with purpose. After many underground hours, after fatigue and thirst and the sharpened fear that comes when you are alone and cold, Chris returned to a blocked entrance and began searching carefully along the wall. Staying close to the rock reduced the angles his light had to illuminate. 50 feet from that blocked entrance he noticed something different. A hidden crawlway tucked behind a displaced rock, almost invisible unless you were looking for something small and unlikely. He crawled through, and a short time later he burst into sunlight. He had been underground for a very long time, but he was alive. The lesson here is not about luck. It is about humility and about having small, practical methods to counter confusion. Chris used his map not as a flawless oracle but as a tool to ration choices. He left marks. He stayed close to walls when searching. He forced himself to slow his thinking and rely on small tests instead of assumptions. And he kept a motive that matters, his family waiting outside. That care pulled him forward when panic threatened to stop him. Now imagine a group of boys exploring a cave the way many of us did as children, equal parts daring and naivete, less training than curiosity. One of them, Brian, squeezed into a narrow passage that seemed like a shortcut or a secret route. The rock pressed tight against his body. The passage bent sharply in an L shape. At first Brian felt a rush of triumph at making it where others had not, but within moments that triumph turned to terror. He could not move backward. The rock held him like the jaws of a trap. His shoulders and hips were wedged in. The other boys, frightened and limited by their small hands and arms, tried to pull him back by his legs. Their effort did not free him. In that moment, the decisions people make matter more than strength. Brian's mother, also a scout leader, understood what had to happen. To free him, Brian would have to reverse the posture that had taken him into the passage in the first place. That meant twisting and bending in ways that caused pain, and it meant someone had to stay with him and guide and pull inch by inch. The rescue took a long time. Brian screamed as his skin scraped the rock. He endured pain beyond what most of us can imagine, and he was finally freed only through steady, patient work done by someone who loved him. This story shows us that rescuers often need knowledge and a calm spine more than brute force. When a body is compressed by rock, pain will resist movement, and the urge to yank or pull hard can make things worse. The right movement is rarely the fastest. It is the one that unthreads the body from the constriction without creating new injuries. The presence of a calm, trained adult made the difference between a long recovery and a permanent tragedy. Another story moves from a routine training exercise to a near-mystical encounter in total darkness. A college student, Rachel, was part of a group doing a search and rescue practice in a famous national park cave. The exercise was supposed to sharpen skills. Teams would seek out instructors hiding in the system and practice communication, mapping, and rescue procedures. Rachel and a teammate crawled into a narrow tunnel after what they believed to be the sound of laughter. They left backpacks and extra gear behind, thinking it a simple check. Then her lamp died. A lamp is more than an accessory underground. It is the difference between a world with horizon and a world that is a pocket of air you can no longer measure. Rachel remembered her training. She knew she should have stayed put and made noise to attract rescuers. She initially did that, but impatience and the need to do something pushed her to try to wend her way back. She crawled, reached a junction, and climbed into the wrong passage. Now without her pack, without spare light, and with the cold closing around her, she had to keep moving to stay warm. Her classmates and the instructors called in the park rangers and then more caving experts. The search became a real rescue. Alone underground, hungry and thirsty, Rachel's mind began to strain. Deprivation causes the brain to misread sounds, to give meaning to shapes in the dark. She heard whispers, the trick of a mind trying to locate comfort in a terrifying place. After what felt like an eternity, a rescuer heard her voice faintly calling. When she saw the man with a beard approaching with a light, in her confusion she asked if he was God. The rescuer was human, but the moment captured how thin the barrier between ordinary life and utter disorientation can be when a lamp dies and the world becomes cold stone and silence. Rachel's ordeal reminds us of one simple fact: never rely on a single light source. It also shows the power of training and organized response. Her teammates made sure they called for help and that park authorities escalated the search. The presence of trained rangers and cave experts increased the odds of a safe outcome. If you go underground, bring redundant lights, tell people exactly where you will be, and respect the instructions of experienced guides. A different cave, a different kind of human error. James and his friends entered Huck Cove with plans to explore, but the social psychology of small groups can be as dangerous as the rock itself. Anger flared in a narrow, stressful environment and James told his companions to leave him alone. They obeyed, and the moment the group became separated, the risk multiplied. Pride and stubbornness kept James pushing farther, deeper, convinced he could find his own way out. As hours passed and his light dimmed, the cave that had felt like a playground turned against him. He tried passages that led deeper, misread the subtle contours of the cave that should have guided him back, and finally found himself alone in complete darkness with a failing flashlight. When James' family became worried and called law enforcement, a search was launched. Ordinary rescue teams can exhaust their options quickly in a sprawling system. A man named Barney Foster, someone who knew the cave in precise, intimate detail, refused to accept failure. He pressed into the tightest parts, the sections others avoid. He found the traces that tell a rescuer a person passed here recently, the ash from a small fire, a scuff in the mud, a faint smell of human presence. He kept going and heard a cough. He found James lying on cold stone, bruised and injured, but alive. James had survived by grit and a ferocious will to live, but he paid for it with severe dehydration and hypothermia. The rescue team carried him out carefully. The picture here is simple and brutal. People die in caves because they take social risks, they overestimate their strength, and they misjudge how long they will keep vital gear working. Group dynamics matter. Don't leave someone alone in an environment where weather and mood can change fast. When your group fractures, the safest move is to stop and regroup, not to push through alone. The last story in our lineup is of 4 friends who set out to find a famous crystal chamber. They were young, confident, and not entirely honest with their parents about where they were going. Lost Creek's main passage welcomed them with water and glittering formations, and for a short time the cave felt like the best kind of discovery. Then the choices that seem harmless to people under the age of adventure turned into a chain of missteps. They took a narrow tunnel, found the chamber in triumph, and then faced multiple exit passages with no memory of which one they had used to enter. What matters in those seconds of indecision is clarity and restraint. The group began to debate. The map was hard to read in the low light. They split small errors into larger problems by not stopping to mark a reliable sign, and then they had a panic and a slip that resulted in a badly sprained ankle. One member had a panic attack. One of them lost the capacity to make calm choices. They spent a night underground, cold and shivering. Rescue teams had to travel far from the main system to reach them, and when they finally did, it took hours to extract the group because they were deep in the cave's network. When the friends emerged, the reunion with family was raw, relief, tears, and a series of hard conversations about honesty and safety. The choices that looked innocent at the trailhead, going without telling parents the full plan, ignoring the need for extra batteries, failing to place clear markers, became lessons paid for with fear and suffering. Across these stories there are patterns. The first is that caves are honest about consequences. A lamp will fail, a map can be wrong, a passage can loop back on itself, a narrow squeeze can pin your body in place, a group can fracture under stress. The second is that common sense practices make a huge difference. Tell a trusted person the exact route you plan to take. Carry multiple sources of light and check batteries before you start. Keep spare food and water in a waterproof pouch. Wear clothing that will keep you warm if you are stationary for long periods. If you are with a group, decide on a simple system of markers or chalk marks to show where you have been. If someone is injured or trapped, stay calm, do not yank flailing limbs. Keep the injured person warm and immobile while you signal for help or while a trained rescuer stabilizes the situation. We should also honor the qualities shown by rescuers in these stories: persistence, local knowledge, and patience. Rescuers often work in tight spaces that demand quiet problem-solving and a willingness to follow signs that others might miss. They listen for coughs and for faint calls. They move inch by inch because haste underground is often lethal. If you ever find yourself lost in a cave, there are actions that give you the best chance of getting out. Slow down your breathing, control your headlamp usage so batteries last, stay near walls to find consistent features, leave discrete marks at junctions, and stay calm enough to conserve energy. Panic is the enemy because it accelerates oxygen use and wastes calories. Communication matters. Call out at intervals, listen carefully, and if you know someone is searching, make noise in a steady pattern so rescuers can home in on your sound. I want to be clear, these are not moralizing tales about bravery. They are human stories about ordinary people who made ordinary errors. They are about repair, how partnerships and planning and small practical habits patch the worst mistakes. If you care about exploring safely, the greatest act of respect you can show the underground is to learn its limits and to prepare to meet them. Before we close, think about this with me. If you were at the mouth of a cave and the entrance looked slightly different from the map, what would you do first to make sure you did not get turned around? If a light dies in your pack, how would you tell the group? If you were the person who found a hidden passage that might be the way out, would you mark it and wait, or would you press forward because you alone can see the route? These are not hypothetical choices, they are the small forks that decide whether a story ends with a rescue or with something worse. If this video stirred something in you, take a moment and do 3 simple things to help this channel keep bringing these stories to life. First, click subscribe if you are not already subscribed. Subscribing helps other people who care about real survival lessons find these videos. Second, like the video if you found the stories gripping or helpful. That simple action tells the platform you value this type of content. Third, leave a comment below. I want to hear which story shocked you the most, what one safety change you will adopt the next time you go into the outdoors, and which cave story you want us to research next. Tell us if you have your own experience to share. Real conversation helps everyone learn. Please share this video with anyone you know who likes exploring, who teaches youth outdoors programs, or who goes underground with friends. These stories are not meant to scare, they are meant to sharpen awareness. If you have questions about choosing gear, building a simple cave kit, or how to practice safe navigation without risking getting lost, ask in the comments. I will read them, and in future videos I will address practical gear lists and step-by-step tips that are text-to-speech friendly and easy to follow. Thank you for staying with me. If you want more deep-dive true adventure stories like these, subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when the next episode goes live. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember that respect for the underground is the best preparation you can bring before you shine your first light into the dark.